Good morning. This is Dr. Savage coming to you live. We're talking about budgets this morning. And we're going to be this topic is so critical for all of you out there, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you just want to know more about budgeting. It's your time, and we must learn how to budget so that we can live the very best life that we want to live. I'm going to be toggling a little bit between a few things this morning. We are talking about living your ideal lifestyle by budgeting. And this is a critical concept, so that we can begin to live our very best lives. So, yesterday we talked about what is it that you want out of life. And that is so important to know what it is you want out of life in order to begin thinking about and mapping out your plans for your future and how you're going to get there. Now, of course, once you map out what it is you want out of life, and then it is very, very important for you to begin to think about how you will get there. So we're talking about budgets this morning, and the number one topic is how we get there, and that requires income. Income, it comes from many, many sources. It can come from a job. It can come from SSI. It can come from anywhere. Child support, alimony. It can come from anywhere. The IRS classifies all of these things are considered income, and income can also come from revenues from your business. So since we're talking primarily about entrepreneurship and the income that we raise in our businesses, then we're going to really be honing in on some of the things that are very, very important. Let me adjust my volume just a little bit. Very, very important for us as entrepreneurs, and that is the revenues that we bring in. We use a different language in as entrepreneurs than we do in our budgeting for our homes, but it's the same concept. Income is that you can spend would be income that is considered your net disposable income. Net disposable income is what you have after you have paid all of your bills or have met all of your expenses, both in your budgeting home lifestyle and in your business income. So in business, it will be your income after you've paid your bills as well. So you have your revenues minus your expenses, and then you have your net disposable income. But what we know as entrepreneurs is that things can be, you can have moments of with less security, because a job provides you, when you do have one, provides you a sense of security. You're going to get the same paycheck, or you're going to be assured a paycheck every week. But in business, that may differ because it is contingent upon what you bring in and how sales are going and what products are doing and what the ebbs and flow are of business. So net disposable income is the difference between your income and your expenses. Now, most people will probably just guess at this. Not entrepreneurs. I'm hoping you're not guessing at this, because this is important. But most people will guess at it. I used to guess at it. Used to hate budgets. Didn't want to write anything down. But it's imperative that we do that. Say, for example, I wanted to go on a trip. And I do want to go on lots of trips. And it costs a certain amount of money. Here's about living the ideal lifestyle by budgeting. Here's an example of that. I want to go on a trip. And in order to go on that trip, I will have to identify the costs for that trip. The cost for that trip, say for example, may be about $7,000. And in order to do that, I have to save for that. So that's another expense that I must now think about in order to make that trip. I must think about the cost of the trip, how that factors into budgeting, how that factors into the amount of money that I earn that is consistent. So $7,000 I've got to save over a few, maybe a year in order to. So we should be planning that far out, because if you really want to go on a really nice trip and you want to have an enjoyable time without stressing about monies, then you should probably plan, pretty further out so that you can accommodate the cost of the trip. So we're looking at a trip, and over a period of time, I have, after my expenses, I have my net income that I've written down. For example, let's say my net income is, after expenses, maybe for $5,000 in a month. Okay, $5,000. Hey, Matissa, glad you could join me this morning. And I have to. My trip, though, is going to be, no, maybe that's pretty huge. Maybe I need to scale that back just a little bit so I can show you how that may not be affordable, or it may be affordable if you plan accordingly. So good morning. So say, for example, I want to go on this trip and it's $5,000, but my net income is I only take home $500. I think I could save $500. Here's the example that's used. I want to take a trip. I need to save $5,000 to take the trip and spend time wherever it is I'm planning to go. So I'm thinking, maybe I can save $500 a month after income over 10 months to do that. And so, but based on my income and expenses, I only have $300 a month to save. This is the example that's used. And so therein lies a problem, because I will need to save $500 in 10 months in order to go on this trip. But I only have the ability to save $300 after my expenses. So, since therein lies the problem, what must I do? I need an additional $200 to save for this trip. So, what we have to then do is begin to think about what kind of adjustments we might need to make, or maybe extend out our savings over a few more months versus our grabbing and trying to save $500 a month, because we're going to be taking from something else to be able to save the $500, and that's not the idea at all. We want to maintain our flow while we are trying to save for our trip. So instead of 10 months of saving with that for $500, then perhaps we should extend out over 16 months and save the $300, so that we are able to afford to go on the trip without interfering with the mainstream of our budget, which is not to go over our expenditures for the month, or to spend what we don't have. A lot of times we overspend, we spend more than we have. We casually go out and make purchases on things, and we just don't have the money. We are a society that literally feeds the economy without really thinking about what we're spending. So begin to think about how you can write down what you actually have after you bring in a certain amount. For example, your income, you get a paycheck, or you have your sales as an entrepreneur, but then you have your expenses as an entrepreneur as well. And then you also remember that it's your month to month may not be the same every month. I'm sorry about that, folks. It may not be the same every month. And so because of that, again, we must carefully think about how we're going to spend our money. For example, for that piece of equipment that we may need to purchase, or for example, that phone we were talking about, so that we can accommodate our consumers the way we need to accommodate them. And I had to do the very same thing in order to be able to hop onto Periscope. But I realized that now I have this additional $30 of expense that I'm going to be looking for, because my other equipment was paid for. So, but because that's just how business flows, that's what we need to do. So now I need to factor in how I'm going to cut costs, or no, not cut. I think the ideal thing is for me to sell more product in order to make more money to accommodate this small expense, or to accommodate that trip that I want to take in 10 to 16 months. So I'm not deciding to go backwards. I want to live the very best lifestyle. So no, I'm not going to figure out how I'm going to just maintain. I want to go forward. Yes, forward is where I want to go. So because of that, I am going to be leaning more towards how I can increase my sales. Now, some of the ways that you can do that as an entrepreneur is to begin to think about your financial arms. What is it that you have available to you? What are you doing now that's bringing in your revenues? And what can you do differently to bring in more revenues? For example, I have several products that I sell and services that I provide for my consumers, and I have learned to digitally package those products as well. So here's how I do that. I have the Institute, for example, that I sell. I have 10 courses, distance education courses, that I provide over at the Entrepreneurial Institute, and my website is located above or below my picture. So I have the Institute that provides the courses. And then, so I don't want to leave money on the table. Never ever leave the money on the table, entrepreneurs. So you want to say, okay, well, they may not be able to afford the course, which the course is extremely affordable. It's $149. It's a 6-month mini course, and you learn in the classroom and apply in the classroom. The concept for Audacity is to identify, initiate, and implement. That is so critical, not to push aside what you learn, but to use and apply what you learned with immediacy. So it's instant gratification. So let's tie this into how we can not leave the money on the table and make it affordable to other people. So we're talking about increasing our sales to accommodate our lifestyle. So say, for example, someone may not be able to afford that course. Well, you want to make it affordable to them, maybe break it up into payments. So that's what we do with the course. But aside from that, what about the person who is already pretty savvy in business but still wants to be able to grab on to some of those concepts that you have going on in the course room? Well, then there is of course, the book, the ebook for one of my courses that's available for that person who just wants to do self-paced. They're pretty comfortable with reading something and moving on. So there's the book for $10 versus the course where you want to learn and apply in the class. Some people can just self-learners and can move on forward with it. Then there's also the DVD option for all the videos that are inside the course room that provides the lecturings for those individuals who come to class once a week to get that information. So then there's the DVD, which is cheaper, but it increases your sales. It doesn't leave the money on the table. It gives people an option. And for those people who don't, necessarily want DVDs, maybe they just want an outline of the course concepts, not the videos or lecturings that go into detail, but maybe they just want the concepts. So then there's the audio, which is also an option for the consumer as well. So that is a way that you can begin to increase your sales so that you can live the best lifestyle that you want to live. You don't have to settle for staying right here when you can have the very best lifestyle. So what I want you to do is begin to remember, let's recap what we talked about. We talked about living your best lifestyle by budgeting. And so you want to understand what your net disposable income is to accommodate those things you have coming up. And your net disposable income equals your income minus your expenses. Entrepreneurs, it equals your revenues minus your expenses. Same terms, just different arena. So bottom line is, schedule out what you want to plan out what you want to have. If you have 6 seminars you need to take this year, then write them down. They need to be written somewhere. A budget is something that you need to visit every single month. It needs to be consolidated. You need to revisit it. You need to understand where your money's coming from and what your projected income, what you are going to need in the future in order to accommodate the lifestyle that you have written on paper. And those are my tips for today for living your very best lifestyle while budgeting. Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Savage over at Audacity Group Social Enterprise. Let me just shout out my courses while you visit over there, because we're going to be starting a new set of courses in March 16th. It's the entrepreneur budgeting for the entrepreneur. We're going to be having building your business from ground zero. We also have concept mapping to understand your financial arms. We also have blogging for the entrepreneur, and so much more. And I encourage you to visit Audacity Group Social Enterprise and check out some of the courses that we have going on. You will be very pleased with the format of the courses. Are essential. They're like university distance education courses where you have an instructor inside the course room. You learn a concept. Your assignments are to apply the concept, and then you have an instructor who holds you accountable for that. That's me, Dr. Savage. And so very excited about what we're doing over at Audacity Group Social Enterprise. So join us there each day. Every day we'll be coming to you on Periscope. Looks like I'm stuck.